And welcome everybody to another edition of the Cripple Connection podcast. My name is Cody Lashney, and I am joined, as always, with my partner in crime, Jeffrey Redmond. Jeffrey, what's going on, buddy?
Not much. It's a heavy day today, kind of toward the end, so just be prepared for that shit.
Yeah, man,
Uh,
the world's burning, and that's true here as well.
yeah,
But hey, this is a video game podcast brought to you by two crippled gentlemen, and this is a podcast about video games, and it's for absolutely everyone. If you like what we're doing here, or if you've just now heard about us, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you like what we're doing. Help get our content seen by as many people as possible. And Jeffrey, ain't nothing to it but to do it, man. Let's go ahead and start this
right.
episode. Let's take care of a little, I guess some around the internet updates, and
Yep.
we have brand new Crash Bandicoot. How about that, man? Dude, and I think you might have been the one to message me, or maybe I messaged you. I don't know, but we're getting another Crash, and
Yep.
I'm absolutely stoked about it, man.
Me
Crash
too.
Bandicoot.
Hit this volume here, but yeah, man, a brand new Crash Bandicoot, and I don't know about you, but I mean, this is probably my first PlayStation game ever
Yep.
with the original Crash Bandicoot. So it's I'm happy that it's coming back. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Activision is making this.
Yes.
Yeah,
They
so
are publishing this, but the people actually responsible for the making of the game are is a company called Toys for Bob, and they previously did the Spyro Reignited trilogy, which was a very faithful adaptation of the original Spyro games for the PlayStation. So they very well know what they're doing when it comes to platforming. Um, they're huge fans of the original trilogy uh, for Crash. So, and it's very clear from the gameplay here that they're very much sticking to the old style platforming, and yeah, it's going to be great. Obviously, the graphics are much better,
much better.
everything, but
The graphics look incredible, but also, as you can see, you're going to be able to play as a few new characters, some old
yeah,
characters. Yeah, they're really gonna let you kind of go crazy with this one, which is fun, man. Like I said, I
yeah,
absolutely love. Uh, I mean, dude, I grew up in that era with all of those.
yeah, I did too.
Yeah, I mean, all of those games, and
Mhm.
just had an incredible amount of fun with them. I remember playing Spyro. Now
Yeah,
we're seeing that we're gonna get a new Ratchet and Clank, which
yeah,
is
it
really cool.
just
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, it's like I think I said this to you earlier, but it really does kind of feel like these platformers that we've all kind of known and loved growing up with are making a comeback, and I love it, man. Because I think I've made this point before, but I'm 30 years old now. I mean, people have kids that grew up with this kind of thing, so
Yeah,
you're gonna be able to
exactly.
play it with a whole nother generation. And I mean, these games are easy to pick up. They're for, I mean, all
Mhm.
ages. You don't have to be young or old. It's not mature content. It's just fun, man. And if you look at we're looking at some new footage from a
Yep.
new level that was released 2 days ago, and it's just so beautiful, man. I mean, the art style is vivid. It's colorful, and just man, it's a beloved character that really kind of, especially in those early years, put PlayStation on the map.
Yeah. Well, I remember getting my original PlayStation One. I got it because I got good grades, and the one of the pack-in games was Crash Bandicoot 2. So I like 2 better than I like any of the other ones, but that's just bias on my part. But it really it really looks like it encapsulates the original spirit, which is just awesome. Um, so yeah, I really can't wait to see what they do. They've shown off some anti-gravity mechanics there, so they're gonna have all kinds of little twists and turns for you to
And it
have
seems
to
like there's going to be
manage.
different ways to play the level too. So
Exactly.
it gives it some replayability. As you see, you're missing if you go on the ceiling or the floor, you're missing one or the other. So
Yeah.
and we got some side scrolling stuff too. I mean, it's a tried and true platformer, man. And these games are fun, and they're also infuriating because they get so hard
Oh,
at
they're
a
so
certain point.
hard.
I
Oh my
mean,
god! I
yeah.
tried the Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy, the remaster of that. I tried to go back through that the other day, and oh my god, I was getting my ass kicked. My reaction time isn't as good as it was all those years ago. But
Or
these
maybe
these
you
are
just
great.
haven't played it in so long. Maybe you just need to
Or
get
maybe
back into a
that's it. I
rhythm.
don't
Yeah.
know, but like I love these games. Like you said, they're easy to pick up and play. There's a bunch of replayability. Um, you can go back and get all the boxes, and you get special items, and there's so if you're a completionist and you're big on that kind of thing, these levels are going to take you a pretty long time. So yeah, I'm really excited.
One of the things that I'm just loving to do, just in the background, or just watching in this video, is looking at the background and all
Yeah,
the details that go into the level environment. I mean, really, whenever you have a game like this, it allows you to kind of take the gloves off. Like unlike The Last of Us, where it's very hyper,
right.
kind of realistic and beautiful in a different sense. This is very stylized, hyper cartoonish. So I
Yeah.
imagine, if you're a level designer, working on a game like this has to be incredible. I mean, seeing
Oh
the
yeah.
waterfalls and the shipwrecks and different parts of the level that maybe you're going to be able to go to later. You
Well,
see houses and
that's
stuff in the back. It's just really cool.
yeah, and that's what they said. Especially with the pirate ship part, they said all the stuff you see in the when you're sliding on those ropes are actual parts of the level that you're gonna eventually get to. So it's like it's really cool, and like I'm sure they've added like all kinds of Easter eggs in the background too. So it'll be cool
Oh,
to
so
see what
is
people
this
can
how
pick
you
out.
go from level to level? It looks like there's a cannon. And, like, does it shoot you to different parts of the level? Because if so,
I
that would
think
be
so.
dope.
I think so. That's what I'm assuming anyway. They don't show it directly, but that's certainly what it looks like. Like it's blasting you to different
Yeah,
areas of the level. So that'll be cool.
that's
You get
cool,
to play
man.
as Coco and Cortex, and the whole thing's gonna be great.
Dude,
I
it just
can't wait.
punches you right into nostalgia. And
Definitely,
hey, even if you've never played them before, I mean, what a better time to jump on, man.
exactly.
It's good fun. There's no reason why you wouldn't pick something like that up.
Right.
So that kind of brings us to our next topic, and this is something that we wanted to fit in before we got to our bigger discussions, and that involves pricing. And it was reported that 2K Games these are the makers of the NBA 2K series, very wildly popular basketball game. They put it out that they're considering raising prices for the next generation of games, considering the power of the console and what they're selling and what they're offering. I thought it was almost weirdly ironic that it would be them to break the news, because this is a company that has been known for just egregious
Price
microtransactions.
gouging. Yeah.
Yeah, and that
Yeah,
that
like
kind of
crazy.
that free to play model, but it's not a free to play video game. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's but it got me wondering, and I'll pass this question to you, Jeffrey. Do you expect that we're going to see more than the $60 price tag? And how many other developers do you think are going to jump onto this? And is there reason to do so? So, are you more willing to pay more money for these incredible games? And if so, how much?
Honestly, I've been forecasting this for myself for quite a long time. Honestly, I'm surprised that it has taken this long for anybody to like officially say anything. Because truthfully, the amount of money and the amount of time that these games take to make, um, unless you do sell, millions of copies, you're not getting you're not. I mean, you're getting your money back, but you're not getting it to the extent to where it's um, profitable business wise for them to
Right.
invest all this time and money. So yeah, like you said, 2K and all these other developers, especially these sports games that add in all these microtransactions and
Right.
shit.
And
They're
developers for a while have kind of been saying, well, this is why we do my, in-game content. This is why we
yeah, yeah,
continue
that
to do all of these things so that way we're able to get our money back. And I
right,
understand that, and I guess it's like, well, which do you prefer? Paying more for DLC or unlockable content or what have you? Or are you just
right.
going to pay more for the initial title? And I've kind of always felt like a price tag was due. I felt like
Yeah,
a $60 price tag. Like it's been that way for a long time now.
yeah.
That we've been paying $60 for video games. And
And
by the way, I even want to clarify that it was released on the PlayStation 5 version of NBA 2K20 or 21, whatever is coming out. The game is going to be $10 more expensive on the
yeah.
PS5 at launch than it's going to be for the PS4.
The thing is, though, this isn't the first time a price hike has happened. I don't know if you remember this, but back on the PS2, games used to be $50, and then when they moved into the HD era, PS3 and onward, it became 60. So I realize that's only a $10 difference, but like it seems like every significant jump in graphical fidelity that we go, there seems to be some kind of hike upward. Whether that's in small increments or not, is up to the developers and stuff. But it is interesting to note that every major hike up in terms of quality, we tend to do see a price increase. So whether this is going to be up to the developers or if this is just going to be an industry round thing, I don't know, but I'm willing to pay as long as it's not like $150 a game, because I'm already used to paying $100 because I always pay for the goddamn deluxe editions of games
Yeah,
as
yeah.
it is. I mean, so I'm used to paying more out of pocket than the typical gamer is. But I mean, if it's going to be 150 $200 per game, then fuck you, I'll find another hobby. You
Yeah.
know what I
So
mean?
okay,
Like
what
really.
kind of how much? What do you think's reasonable? I mean, I guess let's just assume that that's going to be the price hike. I mean, from 60 to 69.99. Do you think that's reasonable, or do you think that we
Yeah.
could see even more than that? Or
Uh,
I mean, for for me personally, I kind of think that's a good kind of price, that $70 price range. If you're going to raise prices, again, this is also at the time in America and other parts around the world where we're in the middle of this crazy
right.
COVID-induced depression. So it's like people don't necessarily have more loose change floating around.
Yep.
So it is tricky, but I mean, if you're paying for something that's that much more powerful, then one, they
Yep.
better not disappoint. I mean, you're talking about
Right.
real extra burden to deliver, and
Yes.
and number two, I mean, they all better look absolutely incredible. Like, especially going into these next gen games, I don't want to see a difference, or I do want to see a clear difference rather between PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, or old gen
Definitely.
and current gen.
Right. I would say personally, for me, I'd be willing to even spot the developers $10 more than you. So I would go 80, maybe
Yeah.
even
Okay.
85 if I feel that the game is
Oh,
is
it's
worthy. But
climbing. Yeah.
but but like you said, they better fucking deliver on
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
because I'll be damned if an indie game that lasts 2 hours is going to ask me for the same amount of money
Yeah.
that a AAA game does. And I'm not saying that the indie developers would be that greedy, but I mean, I understand that gaming is a business, you know, first and foremost. So I understand that money is a priority, but at the same time, you have to put out a decent product, or nobody's going to want to buy it. So it's like,
Yeah, no one's
you
gonna
know,
want to buy it, and I also feel like they're still gonna try and nickel and dime you by doing.
And they are. They're still gonna have the microtransactions.
like they're still gonna try and figure out all the bullshit to try and get every bit of change from you that you possibly can, and that's either gonna make it where people either aren't picking up as many games as they did, or it's gonna make them choose a little bit harder between, well, do I really want to get another game and spend the time on it. And honestly, that's kind of a good segue to what we're going to be talking about today, and it's the title of today's episode: Are Games Too Long? And really, this is a continuation of last week's podcast. And by the way, if you've played The Last of Us 2 and you've beaten it, please go watch the video review that Jeffrey and I did. I messed up and accidentally uploaded it 2 times, but whatever. It gives you double the opportunity. Go check out Jeffrey and I's Last of Us 2 review. But this is kind of a continuation of that, because one of the criticisms of that game and of many other games is that it's too long. And this is something that we've been kind of hearing for a long time now. But also now we can frame it with some of the kind of the more, how would you put it, the underbelly of the game industry and the standards and practices of the deadlines that they're put under and the amount of time-intensive work that these games require. And you know, our games, are the length of them being kind of artificially extended for no real reason. And I thought that would be a good topic for today's show, because a lot of games, especially these big AAA titles, they're long, real, you know, girthy experiences, man. So
and they are.
Yeah. So, and I can kind of see both sides to this. So, Jeffrey, I'll kind of start with you. Do you think that AAA games are too long? Are they too long to finish?
Well, it's funny you say that, because even in last week's episode, that was one of my things with The Last of Us Part 2, was just how long it was. Because when you talk about a third-person shooter, you're expecting maybe a solid 7-8 hour game, but instead, at the very least, you're getting a 16-hour game.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go and do all the extra stuff, obviously it's going to be more than that. But even if you're speed running the game, I mean, not speed running, but if you're going through the game at a normal pace, you're going to be spending 16 hours. And that was actually one thing that I kept saying throughout this game. I'm like, okay, surely now is the stopping point. But no, it kept going. And then I'm like, now's the stopping point. And then it just kept going. And I was like, well, how far is this damn game going to go? I mean, don't get me wrong. I wasn't counting the minutes. I wasn't saying that the game needed to end.
Right.
It just surprised me how long it was. And you know what? I mean, some people don't have the time to do that. You might say, well, pick another hobby. But, you know, a lot of people, and maybe this is just a stereotype because this is what we're used to, but a lot of it depends on the genre. So you know going into like an RPG that it's going to take longer, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you pick up a game like The Last of Us Part 2 and you expect to finish it in a day and a half.
Well, so let me ask you this. How about The Last of Us 2? Did you feel that The Last of Us 2 specifically was too long?
No, because it was focused. And that's the other credit I give to them, is there is side stuff you can do. There's extra, pickups you can do. But the game has a very narrow focus, and I think it's because it's a story-based game. So you have those story beats. You're constantly being moved forward. Whereas a lot of these games have these open areas just to have them so they can print it on the back of the box or in the description and say, look how big our world is, when it's really empty and there ain't shit to do. So, I mean, there's a difference, I think. And I don't mean to call out Rockstar, because I love Rockstar and I love their shit. But I'm telling you, Red Dead Redemption 2, you want to talk about having to be on horseback for 10 fucking minutes to get from one area to another?
And that's another kind of it kind of
I
hits
mean,
it hits the point of the argument that we're making. Like, at what point
right.
of it is are you just wasting time filling out the world so that
Yeah.
you can say how big your game is? And I
Yeah.
also didn't feel that The Last of Us was too long, but I did kind of
No.
feel like I understand how after you've reached 15 plus hours of a video game, if the gameplay isn't necessarily varied
Right.
and there aren't things to kind of break up the monotony, then I can see
Right.
how, yeah, when you're just having to do the same thing over and over and over again just to try and get through the story beats, it's almost like it's when playing the game becomes a burden. And then it's not
Yeah.
fun anymore. You're not having fun playing the video game, which defeats the
Right.
entire point of it. Now, I didn't come across this with The Last of Us 2 because I felt like, there not only was the stealth a fun aspect of that video game, but the amount of weapons that you had and the different ways that you could choose to go about battle. If you wanted to do it with aggression, if you wanted to do it with the crossbow or with the flamethrower, there were a lot of different ways to play. And thinking
Yep.
about games coming up soon, I mean, okay. So when I buy Ghost of Tsushima, which by
Yeah.
far is the game coming out that I'm most excited for, right?
Which is the end of this month, by the way. So look forward to
Yes.
that.
Oh, it is
When
so
we,
close,
when,
dude.
yeah,
It is
yeah, yeah.
so close, and you can guarantee we're going to be doing a review of that as well.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah, for sure, we're going to be delving into that. But I when I buy a game title like that, I want to know, especially if these titles are going to be costing more and more,
Mhm.
as we just talked about. I want to know that I do have a game that I'm going to be able to sit down and play for a long time
Yep.
and have things to do and be able to experience something. So,
Yep.
if you have a kind of short flash in the pan experience, then you don't want to be left wanting more. And
Right.
if I'm spending more money, I want to know that the game is filled with meaningful content and a story that I'm going to be able to remember, and it'll be good enough for me to not even realize how long I've
Realize
been
what you're
playing it
doing.
for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting because I was having a conversation with my cousin about this without even realizing I was having a conversation with her. She is a casual gamer. She has a Switch. She plays Mario Odyssey off and on. She goes, maybe I'll finish that, before I,
Yeah.
end with my Switch or whatever. But I was telling her how I plan my gaming schedule. I plan my gaming and what I play based on the amount of hours that a game takes. So I will go to a game or go to a website like howlongtobeat.com is probably my favorite one. And you can type in any title, old or new, and it will roughly tell you how many hours it takes the average person to beat a game. And I
Yeah.
will plan my entire library based on something like that.
Yeah. And it's
Which is
kind of,
sad, I know, but
no, it just makes you a hardcore gamer, and it's funny because I kind of feel like games now, kind of pale in comparison to the length of like PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games. I
yeah,
mean, you could put legitimately like 80 plus to 100 hours doing everything in like Final Fantasy 10 or Final Fantasy
yes,
8 or Metal Gear
yeah,
Solid 1 or 2. Or, I mean, there's so many games that they really had a lot of content.
yeah,
And, I think that today you're kind of just having to wonder, um, you know, and is it worth it to kind of continue to have these types of development cycles? Because as we talked about
right,
last episode, people talked about the working conditions at Naughty Dog during the
right,
making of The Last of Us 2, and that was kind of considered, a little bit problematic in how they're overworking them. And
right.
I don't have necessarily a good answer here because, like I said,
I don't either.
I don't know what the best standards and practices
Yeah,
for creating a video game are.
right,
But again, it's a balancing act because if you're going to start raising the prices of these games, then yeah, I'm expecting there to be a whole lot of really cool shiny shit in it.
yeah,
And does that make me a monster. You know, if I'm paying more to,
I don't
I mean,
think so.
that's the type of experience that I want. I want to know that
Right.
I'm going to be able to, have a lasting memory of playing this thing.
Right. And I think that's the other thing too. I think it depends on the game. So maybe something like AAA directly from Sony or Microsoft should be a little bit more than something even from I don't I don't even want to say indie. I want to say like third party developers. So like if Capcom comes out with a fighting game, for example, where NetherRealm comes out with a Mortal Kombat, for example,
Right.
I don't think that should cost as much as maybe a AAA game.
Yeah,
Although
absolutely.
you could argue that the fighting games and stuff have online modes, which makes their longevity better. But
Right.
then you can do the DLC for other characters and stuff. There's ways around that. Whereas,
Right.
a major release like a God of War or, a Halo, that's the other thing is fucking Halo and shooters. Like, how is that
Yeah.
even gonna be priced? And if this is an industry wide thing, because shooters typically, especially first person shooters, aren't known for their longevity or their stories. But then again, I didn't think the same of The Last of Us Part 2, and look what it did. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a really weird, up in the air kind of whole shenanigan thing, and I don't
Yeah.
have
I
an
mean,
answer.
yeah. And again, I mean, it sucks that they have to work long hours, but it's
Yeah,
like
it does.
the part. I mean, I definitely don't want to live in a world where I'm paying more for a game that is, that feels smaller. I don't
Yeah,
want to. I don't want like I said earlier, I don't want to buy something and then feel like in no time, I'm done
it's
with it.
done.
You have to offer
Yeah.
replayability, and all of that kind of stuff. But I guess another, to play devil's advocate is, now that people have less time on their hands, people have families, people are doing things. Maybe it's an issue for people where you buy a game and you don't know when you're going to finish it or if you ever are going
Right.
to finish it because it
Hmm.
does go on too long. And I think
Yeah.
that might be a good point. But does the ends justify the means and cutting it down for just that segment of people?
Well, the thing about it is, especially in today's day and age, there's nothing you can't find out on the internet. So
Right.
I would tell you to play devil's advocate to your devil's advocate. It's it's up to the consumer. It's up to us to do our research on these games. And like I said, go and see how long the typical thing is. Go and look at reviews and educate yourself before you buy these games and think, okay, is this going to be a good fit for my play style or the type of games that I play? I'm not saying, automatically drift to one thing over the other, but just do your research, and it's up to you ultimately because it's your money. So
Yeah.
after you buy it, the developers don't give a shit whether you like the game or not. They already have your damn money.
Yeah.
So
So let me ask
so
you
it's
this:
your
Do you
money.
do you how many times have you noticed a bit, or if you have at all, noticed it to be a problem? Like, do you remember? Are there any games off the top of your head where you go, yeah, that game was probably too long? I mean, so obviously we have Red Dead, and that also isn't just the length of the story, but the length of the world and how much you had to
Yes.
travel in that game,
Yeah.
which I think is also kind of a little bit different. But I'm talking from a perspective of, man, this game just keeps going and going and going and
Um,
going. I
yeah.
think
Yeah.
with some of the ones that come to my mind, which I didn't really like Final Fantasy 12 all that much, but Final
Right.
Fantasy 12 was definitely one of
12 was
them.
the slog.
Yeah,
Yeah.
12 was a slog. And I want to say Metal Gear Solid 4. The
5.
well,
Oh,
five.
4?
Well, five. Yeah, I was gonna say 4. Guns.
Okay.
I think that was Guns of the Patriots.
Guns of the Patriots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I did love all those games, but
Yeah.
at a certain point, yeah, it's kind of like, uh, you know, when is this going to end, man? Because they're packing in
Yep.
so much information. There's so much to learn and do. Once you're at 20 plus hours into the game, yeah, I'm still having fun with it, but I think the story, depending on what you're playing, certain games can kind of draw it out too long. And then if they don't stick the ending, then the payoff isn't really worth it. And it kind of gives you this weird kind of not satisfied feeling at the end. So what about you? Do you remember any games that you were like, yeah, this is way too long?
There was this Square Enix game. I think it was called Lost Odyssey. It was a Xbox 360
Oh yeah, no, that was
RPG.
Yeah, that was Hironobu Sakaguchi when he left to do his own thing.
It was 2 disc long.
Yeah,
which was unheard of for a game of that generation at that time. And I was like, and I'm not even saying it was a bad game. It was a great game, but it just kept going and going and going. And I'm like, when is this going to end? And the other one, I hate to say it, and I love this game to death, and I love the franchise to death, and I love CD Projekt Red to death, but The Witcher 3, Jesus Christ.
Wait a little too long for you, huh?
Oh my God. I mean, I love the franchise, okay? I've read all the books by Andrei Sapkowski. I've watched the Netflix series, which is meh.
I kind of felt the same way.
I'm going to get flamed on the internet for saying, but it was meh. I love Henry Cavill, but, whatever. Either way, yeah, the game is great. I love the story, but just the world was so big and there was so much shit going on that I'm like, I got to put this game down at a point because it was taking me months, literal months. And I'm like, I'm a gameplay guy. I've got games to get to.
Yeah.
I don't have 500 plus hours to be spending in this world as much as I love it. And again, that's nothing against the developers. And I realize, some people really do get drawn into these things. And like I said, I'm a big, huge Witcher fan. But even I was like, okay, this is long in the tooth. And that was just the base game. And then they started adding the DLCs, which are about 30 hours apiece. And there's 3 of them. And I'm like, when does this shit end? I'm like, I love it to death and it makes sound terrible, but I'm just like, I have other stuff to get to. And I had to put the game down. And I haven't picked it up since. And it's sad because it's a great game and a great story, but I'm just like, I can't do it. I physically don't have the time to do it. Which actually worries me about Cyberpunk 2077, but that's, that will...
it's funny that you say that. I was gonna say, does that give you any intrepidation about...
Yes.
About Cyberpunk 2077?
Even more so, because this world's supposed to be even more massive and more filled with shit to do.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, oh my God, when does anybody find the time to...
And I guess that's probably the biggest argument to make for them being too long, is that you can have a scenario where you put so much into the game, and I might only have a limited time to play this game, but in order to get the full experience, it does require that deep delve into the world and into the side quests and doing all these different things, and it becomes to a point where if that's integral to experiencing the game, then the length of it is probably going to cause more people to not play those parts or have to read about them online or watch videos about them and not actually experience them themselves. So I do get that criticism, but man, I keep on coming back to the same notion, and maybe this is fucked up of me to say it this way or put it this way, but damn, dude, if I'm going to play a game, like, I want to know that I'm buying something substantial. It's like when I buy it's like when you buy a brand new book. You and I are book nerds, and you have a big, thick book, and you know that you're getting ready to delve into this thing and go on the adventure. Like, I want to know that when I'm buying something, So another game, and I think that you might agree with this too. I mean, there are a bunch of examples of this, and you can give yours if you want. But
Sure.
I remember like Bloodborne. Yeah, it was fucking hard, and
I beat Bloodborne.
yeah.
I
So
beat it.
it was incredibly hard,
Yes.
but I also felt that it was really long. But that
It
type of
was.
game was meant to be that way. So it's
Yes.
like it's a part of this long, brutal slog in the
Yep.
mud with this hellacious experience. It's like
Yep.
that. I liked the length of it because I felt like that was a part of the difficulty of the game. It's not only is it hard, but then you have to make it through the damn thing, which is
Right. Right.
another
Well,
task in and of itself.
and see, that's the thing. It's like, when does difficulty meet the length of a game? So, like, actually, when you sit down and you go through Bloodborne on a no-hit run, which I have done, uh,
Oh shit!
yeah, that's using glitches and previous patches of games and all kinds of crazy ass shit. By the way,
Hey man, you don't have
so
to give away all your secrets. I believe
no,
you.
no, no, but it's not it's actually easier than people think it is. But I digress on that. But the point is, if you go through Bloodborne story beat by story beat, you're probably only getting a 6 hour experience if
Yeah,
you don't die.
yeah,
If you don't die, but that if is a gigantic fucking if. And the only reason I know this is because I know the game backwards and forwards, and I know exactly where to go. And, well, I'm a huge fan of H.P. Lovecraft, and it's got all the H.P. Lovecraft shit there. So, of course, I'm that guy that's going to obsess over that game and that lore specifically. I like that better than any of the other Dark Souls or Demon Soul game, by the way. But,
yeah,
yeah, Bloodborne is a great example of the amount of time you put into it as a gamer versus the amount of time that the game actually takes.
yeah,
Because then difficulty becomes a factor, which, I mean, honestly, in any of these other games like Red Dead or The Witcher, you can just turn that shit all the way down to casual and just breeze
yeah,
right through everything.
yeah,
Whereas Bloodborne and all the From Software games are specifically designed, um, to have that, and to that extent, you have Sekiro, which can actually be sped running under an hour if you know what you're doing, which is even worse.
dude,
But
I can't
like
even imagine.
it's the now I didn't do that one because I can't play Sekiro to save my goddamn life, but it is possible. So difficulty and how long you spend dying is something that needs to be considered in a game like that, which is why I think the From Software games aren't that long, because they're expecting you to die and they're expecting you to spend that majority of the time dying. So that's an interesting concept too, because I hadn't really thought about difficulty in terms of time management. But yeah, it is something, and I think in terms of a game like that, you can't go onto a website like I was saying, and then just automatically know that shit, because
Yeah.
it's going to be different for everybody. So
I'm
yeah,
also
I
trying to
keep
think of.
rambling, but
I'm trying to think of games that where the length didn't matter. Games that were long and it was like I didn't notice it or care. And I guess this discussion, I mean, there's also the angle of the people making these games, and I've already said that I don't really know what to say to that, but like I think back to Resident Evil 4, which I
yeah,
felt was long, but man, every moment of it, I was just
was the action
I was
packed,
just
yeah.
entrenched in the story and the gameplay.
Mhm.
I loved it, and I didn't want to put it down, and I wanted it to be long. And then
Right.
inevitably, even if it is a long game, if you like it so much, by the time you're done beating it, it feels like it was short. Like, damn, it's
Yeah.
already over now. It's you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah,
But
yeah, but then you get into the thing of like replayability. So like Resident Evil 4 had like all these unlockable things you could get,
yeah,
if you did things properly, and then you could go through the game a second or even a third time trying to get all the unlockable shit. So it also depends, like I said, on like how much of a completionist you are. So like if you're somebody who's gonna get every little trophy or do every little tiny thing, which I have done in some games, obviously it's going to take you longer than the person who's just casually going through it. So there are so many damn factors that you have to consider when asking if a game is too long or not, because some of it's on the developer, but yeah, some of it's on the player too, and you need to understand both sides in order to really get an accurate assessment. So
to me, it comes down to it. A lot of it comes down to gameplay. I mean, if a company decides to make shorter video games, that's fine. But then it just goes back to I want more polish. Like so for example, a game like, for example, one of the ones that we just played, Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's a reasonably long game, even though it's just a portion of the original Final Fantasy VII. It was still kind of okay in length. I'm willing to give Final Fantasy VII a pass on having some textures not look so good when you're looking at a wall or when you're doing a mission or something. I'm more lenient of that if I know, well, this is a big game, they had a lot to do, and overall I'm still enjoying the gameplay and the overall experience that I'm having. But in the same breath, if you're gonna make it shorter, then I'm not so lenient. Like, I want the walls to look good. I want everything to look good. If you're gonna cut something away from one aspect of the game, which is the length of it, then I want you to add things somewhere else. I want you to make the game look better or play better. You have to make up for what you're cutting out, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. And, I feel like we could talk about this for a long time. I kind of go around.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But, I guess we had nothing to it but to do it, man. Let's get to these really weird, strange accusations. Well, first, let's do this. Let me bring up what happened. Oh, wrong thing. Jeffrey, why don't you go ahead and kind of lead them into this while I bring this up?
So, it's been a sad couple of days for the fighting game community. I will say that up front. Evo, which is the big fighting game tournament, has been canceled due to the CEO being fired for sexual misconduct allegations with little boys, no less, which makes it even,
the article here, this is on Eurogamer. It says Joey Mr. Wizard Kuehler, I guess that's how you say it, was accused of sexual misconduct and predatory behavior towards several teenage boys. An account later backed up by another community member with evidence of inappropriate comments sent by seller on Twitter. And this ended up being a big thing. Before the event was canceled, NetherRealm, Capcom, Namco Bandai, all the fighting game companies that produce the games that make up Evo, they came out kind of really staunch against this. And then I also want to we're going to kind of lump a lot of these together because they kind of happened within a few days of each other. Then before this, it was being talked about how a lot of the bigger names in Super Smash Brothers had been accused of everything from rape and pedophilia, all kinds of really kind of dark shit.
Really.
And Jeffrey, I'll kind of let you go first on this. But here's what I'll do. Let me read the response from Evo.
Sure.
Or I'll just read the first part of it. Over the past 24 hours, in response to serious allegations recently made public on Twitter, we have made the first of a series of important decisions regarding the future of our company. Effective immediately, Joey Seller will no longer be involved with Evo in any capacity, and we're currently working towards his complete separation from the company and have relieved him of all his responsibilities. Going forward, Tony Cannon will serve as our CEO in this position. He will take a leadership role in prioritizing greater accessibility across Evo, both internally and at our events. So, wow, there's kind of a lot to digest here.
Yeah.
But Jeffrey, wow, where do we even start with this? What do we make of this? This is a big deal. So for those of you who kind of don't know what Evo is, it's a fighting game tournament, and it's where all the best video game players of fighting games in the world all come together and beat each other's ass in fighting games for cash prizes and awards and all kinds of shit. So, yeah, I'll throw this over to Jeffrey first. Jeffrey, what's going on with this, man?
The problem here, and I was going to say the same thing about the other point about the Smash Bros. Community, which I will bring up later.
Yeah.
These events especially, are not very well guarded. The security on them is very lax. But there's no way you can guard thousands of people
Right.
During these events. But we should note that the Evo event was already planned to go completely online because of the whole COVID-19 thing already happening. But that's kind of the horror of this. So these people who are in power, like the CEO of Evo, can just come up to anyone randomly, and because they are respected members of the community, obviously, people are willing to, I don't want to say willing to be taken advantage of, but they're more likely to be taken advantage of because they're either given favors or...
It's that whole power dynamic, especially,
it's the power
especially
dynamic.
if
Yeah,
you
exactly.
follow these people, which I haven't heard of any. I love fighting games. We did a podcast a few episodes back about fighters, and I love fighting games. But yeah, I've never been someone that watches a lot of people online play. From time to time, I would kind of see who was good, and I know some of the bigger names, but I've just never been a follower or a fan. And after hearing about this, it's not surprising because you hear a lot of the same things no matter what you're talking about, no matter what sport you're talking about, is that whenever you look up to someone, a lot of you hold a position of power over your fans because they look up to you and they think that you're this incredible player and this and that, and it's easy when these guys say, hey, yeah, give me your number, I'll text you later or whatever, especially in the mind of a young person. It's that they don't understand what they're getting themselves into. And one of the points that I kind of wanted to make and bring up is that there's a reckoning going on in sports right now. And in my mind, and not to change the subject or anything, but this is like video games, or specifically competitive gaming, esports. This is like
it's a sport.
This is this is like they're kind of showing that they're not immune to everything that goes on in other sports. And I feel like you see it with NASCAR banning the Confederate flag, and right now the Washington Redskins are no longer going to be called the Washington Redskins. They're going to be going through a rename process, and there's a reckoning going on where all of the shit that people stood for and kind of let slide before, it's not happening anymore. And football and other sports have kind of had to deal with the ramifications of their own quote unquote locker room cultures and the things that go on behind closed doors. And in my mind, now that video games are worth so much money, and especially in a competitive fashion, that these players need to be held to the same kind of standard, especially if they're building up all these fans that. I mean, come on, we're talking about video games. It's only natural that you're going to bring in a younger audience, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing. Because a lot of people think of, at least the typical person will think of video games as people playing in their houses, which is true. But in these big events, I mean, these are held in arenas. These are held in, gigantic, whole hotel space areas,
these are massive events every year.
I mean, these are ginormous arena type events, and you've got people lined up in hotels and all this kind of stuff, bringing people back, which I don't want to get into too many details, but there's no way for everybody to stay safe without understanding the typical stranger danger thing, which but when you look up to these people and you respect these people and they're like, hey, you want to go back to my room to party, you're not thinking, hey,
well, and also now it puts more pressure on the video gamers themselves, because whether you agree or disagree, man, listen, all anyone ever has had to do is go on Call of Duty on any platform, be it PlayStation or Xbox. There is a level of toxicity amongst gamers, especially hardcore gamers, when they feel like you're playing the game and you suck, or you're a girl. I mean, we can go through the whole Gamergate thing again if we want to.
Oh, God.
But you have to have moments like this where you say, hey, okay, listen, nerds, you're not just in a basement anymore. Okay, people look up to you. They know who you are. I mean, you have a reputation to think about now. And if you want to continue to make money at a time when there's never been more money in competitive video games, you have to act appropriately and understand that, one, that shit doesn't fly, especially when you're talking about children. And I mean, these guys, I mean, this is enough to end their career, and it should.
It should.
So, but I think it shines a spotlight that a lot of the things that video gamers used to get away with, just because gaming in and of itself was kind of a solitary act, up to a certain point, unless they're playing online. But video games being a spectator sport is a fairly recent thing. So, I mean, you have to hold people accountable, and you have to set examples. And now all of these guys that, no matter how big of a name they were in the community, it's like now they're going to go away for a while, and people are going to say, oh, shit, maybe I better fucking start acting correct and not like a basement-dwelling loser.
That too, and that's the other thing about the video game community. It's and I don't mean to sound bad because I'm part of it, but it's easy to sexualize things in a joking way. So I mean, not to be a bigot, but if you see a hot girl or a hot dude or whatever, depending on your preference,
whatever you like, man, whatever's clever.
You're gonna be, probably objectify that in a way that you wouldn't say, if you were in an upstanding kind of thing. You said, it's essentially locker room talk, like you were saying.
And kind of like that rock star mentality. Imagine, okay, so this is kind of built on some stereotypes and bullshit, but it's imagine if you're, a normal video gamer, you don't have a lot of friends, you're kind of a nerd, and you're really good at video games, and then all of a sudden, you become famous, people know who you are, and now you're kind of thrust into this situation where now you have this power dynamic over people that look up to you. And it brings out the worst in people. I mean, and you see this all the time. It just happened to Chris D'Elia, who's a famous comedian and podcaster. Right. People were talking about him grooming underage girls and shit. And I mean, he responded to it, but whatever, man. The whole point is that I think people in the video game industry are now starting to have to realize what kind of power that they have. Right. And I'll say this, man. Kudos to all the people at Capcom and NetherRealms and Namco, all these different companies for knowing this and putting their foot forward and saying, yeah, we're not going to participate if this dude's a fucking creepo perv. You know, I mean, you have to get ahead of that, because whether you like it or not, there is this narrative about gamers being toxic. So if you're willing to turn a blind eye to it, then you're kind of just saying, yeah, well, we're not trying to piss off our fan base because they are a bunch of toxic motherfuckers. But it's never going to get better unless you make that change and actually assert yourself in that scenario.
Yeah. And it is just a rampant thing. I've been following the Smash Brother community for about 3 or 4 years now. Even though I just got a Switch this past year, I've always loved competitive Smash. I think I even mentioned in our fighting game episode that my favorite fighting game is Smash Brothers. And a lot of my understanding of the game and a lot of the way that I've learned to play is from some of these professional players that have now come out, and then basically you find out they're a bunch of perverts, and it's really disheartening, and I almost don't want to play the game anymore, because the more I hear about this, the more that are coming out. Like there was originally like only 3, well now there's 5, just from today alone, and I'm just like, I don't even want to touch the game because it feels filthy to me. And I know I shouldn't do that because it's not Nintendo's fault. And Nintendo even put out a statement, of course, and they said, we obviously don't condone any of the behavior of, the people that are involved with this. But at some point, it's like you don't even want to be a part of that community. And the thing specifically with Smash is that it was always kind of toxic to begin with. Like you were saying, you got pro players going back and forth. You've got, regular people saying, oh, you suck, oh, this. And then to have all this on top of it is just... Now, I want to say that the only one that I know of that has been confirmed is this guy called Nero. He basically took a 15-year-old boy back to his place, who was also a competitive Smash player at the time, and basically he forced him to do some stuff. I'm not going to go into major detail here, but so basically the only reason this guy really got caught was because there was evidence and like screenshots of past conversations and all kinds of stuff. There's responses on both sides, both from him and the person who was raped. It's Captain Jack. You can look him up.
And so, like I said, I'm not familiar with most of these people.
It's a whole. I'm sorry. I know I'm going all over the place.
No, you're fine.
So Nero, the one who actually did this heinous act, said this: "I'm not making excuses. My behavior was wrong. I was wrong. I messed up tremendously. To Zach, I apologize for making you feel like you had to carry a heavy burden all these years. This is not fair to you. I am truly sorry. I am taking some time for self-reflection and am committed to getting help. I need to get better, grow, and learn. As a result, I will not be active on social media. I betrayed the people who trusted and depended on me. To the esports staff who helped me professionally, and more importantly, to the community who have supported and looked up to me for all these years. I failed you all. I am so sorry."
So he pretty much came out and admitted
Yeah, yeah,
that
and he's the
this
only
is
one that
all kind of real.
he's yeah, he's the only one that has. And like I said, it's only because there has been like actual screenshotted evidence.
Right.
Um, I'm not gonna link any of these things. If you want to look into this your own self, all you have to do is go to Google and type in Smash Brothers
Yeah,
sexual
all the
allegation,
information
and
is out there,
and you will
and
get it. But I mean, you should see like all these responses from people saying you're a monster, you're a piece of shit, all these
yeah,
different things, which in my mind he is. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that he's been.
yeah,
I
of
mean,
course,
I don't care how much you apologize for your past actions. Anybody who's willing to do anything like that is worse than a human being, as far
yeah.
as I'm concerned. And honestly, there's no way you can recover from that. So even if you did, go through therapy and do all these things, he's never going to be accepted back into the community, which some people may see as unfair. But I don't. I have no sympathy for this kind of thing. Um, just
Yeah, and it's
sad.
also when you think about it too. You think about all these guys, and
Yep,
it's like at the moment that they start making a legitimate money in their career, they derail their own selves. It's like you end up
they
being
do.
your own worst enemy. And like I said, part of me, I mean, I'm honestly the only thing I can really say and do is just be glad that it's happening, because if it doesn't go, if it doesn't get called out, it's going to continue, and it's
Yeah,
going to continue to encourage other people to get away with the same kind of horse shit. Also, like
right.
if you said this kid's like 15 years old or something, like
He
if
was at the
yeah,
time. Yeah.
it's going to prevent parents from wanting to let their kids compete in these
Right.
kind of events if they
Hmm.
feel like they're around a bunch of predators all the time. Like,
Right.
I mean, and what you don't want to do is paint with a wide brush. I understand
No.
because false allegations get made all the time with all
Well, and
kinds of different,
that's the other thing.
with
Yeah,
all
and I
kinds of
didn't.
different intent. And I don't know,
Right.
like I said, I'm kind of just learning about all of this. I'm more
Right.
learning about it through Jeffrey now than I have in the past few days. But in my opinion, these guys that are being accused of this, they have the opportunity to say, "Hey, I either didn't do this, or they have the story wrong,
Right.
or or there's no evidence or whatever."
Right.
But at the same time, when you're talking about allegations involving minors, it just gets
Yep.
pretty fucking weird, and then you want to distance yourself from that completely. So,
Right.
yeah, man, to all of these people, um, I mean, hey, this is a wake up call, man. The video game industry is a big, multi billion-dollar industry. And whether you like it or not, even if you're not employed by these video game companies of the games that
Yep.
you play, you represent them. And now it's like, look what you just said. You feel dirty picking up Smash Brothers, and they didn't do anything. They just made a
Yep.
fucking game. But
No. No.
now
Yeah.
Smash Brothers is in the rule or is in the news because of this. So now that Smash Bros. Name is attached to this story, and yeah, it just you start thinking, oh well, I was gonna buy this game for my kid, but if he's gonna go online and play it, and there's a bunch of creepy pervs online, it's like, no,
Right.
I'm not gonna buy it for him. So, yeah, not only are you representing yourself, but you're representing the people that make the games and the entire industry as a whole. And is that fair? No, but life isn't fucking fair. Get over it.
And
Quit being a
see
fucking perv.
the one thing I did want to yeah, the one thing I did want to make clear is that it doesn't matter what gender you are, what age you are, what sexuality you happen to be, because there are two reports out of these now that it's overage girls taking advantage of younger guys. So
And that's
like
just as
it's
fucked
not
up.
even
Yeah, it's just as
right,
fucked
right.
up.
And see that's the double standard, because a lot of guys would think,
Yeah.
oh, you got a woman, it's great, but no, this is still along the same lines. And I think people, they need to realize that, and they need to take these things seriously. but unfortunately, there's no way to keep tabs on people, 24/7 and just automatically have a scanner and a radar saying, "Oh, this guy's a creep," stay away from.
Yeah, boy,
There's
don't
no
we
way to
wish,
know
right?
these things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a horrible thing. Um, it happens. You have to, as a person, you have to be able to know when to recognize it. And unfortunately, a lot of these people being taken advantage of are just too young to
To actually know
understand
what's going
what's
on
going on.
and know
And
that they're
then,
being groomed.
and then these, yeah, and these players, they just, like you said, they don't know how to handle power. And I think that goes to their head, and they think they can do whatever they want, and then this kind of shit happens. So,
Yeah.
um,
So let me ask you this: what
yeah,
do you think the
it's
future of Evo is? I mean, they've canceled it for this year, but what do they just kind of take a year off, kind of let this breathe, and then come back sometime next year and try and do this
uh,
again, or what? What do you think is the going forward part here?
what they could very easily do, and what I expect they'll do, is they will drop the Evo name. They'll take a year off, drop the Evo name, rebrand themselves,
Oh,
come
okay.
back as a different company with a different, different management or whatever have you, and kind of re-enter. If they still do use the Evo name, I will
Right.
be severely surprised. Um,
I
I
mean,
mean, they could.
do you
It's
really
been
think the
done.
name is that? I mean, see, and this is another thing. I don't know if the CEO, if he was just a CEO or if he was a founder. But I mean,
Yeah.
if he founded it, then I could understand the name change. But it's kind of like whenever you have allegations in another sport too.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be necessary to change the name, but just fire the people. I don't know. It's kind of
Right.
weird to erase that blemish, I guess, and I guess maybe that's why
Yeah.
you would do it.
Yeah. I don't know, and I don't think he founded it. So maybe they will come back, but they're
Right.
definitely going to take some time off. This isn't something they're just automatically going to be able to spring back from. And I imagine if they do, they will even get even worse backlash than they already have. So from a business standpoint and from a just a decent human being standpoint, I think it would be stupid for them to just turn around and come back. But I don't know. Um, it's just really sad. I
Yeah.
don't know what else to say other than that. And I'm sorry that this happened to all these people, and I'm sorry that the human race is this shitty sometimes, but it is, and it shows that people involved in something like video games, like you said,
Yeah.
are not immune. This happens in all walks of life, and
Yeah.
it's a terrible thing.
And
I don't know what
if
else to
video
say.
games are gonna continue to be, if we want the legitimacy and
Mhm.
want especially competitive video gamers, if they want to continue to be seen as legitimate athletes in the
Yep.
ways that they are, then they have to be able to undergo the same kind of scrutiny that NFL players or baseball or basketball players go through. Um,
Yep.
of any kind, So it's
Mhm.
definitely unfortunate. It's kind of a weird note to end things on, but I mean that's
Yeah.
really pretty much all we have for today. I
Yeah.
don't like I said. I hope that Evo does come back and I mean because the environment is incredible. I mean if you've ever been a
Yeah.
part of a fighting game tournament or been around in a room when fights are going on and there's a crowd that's like invested in the fight. It's
There's an
really,
energy,
yeah,
man.
it's
Yeah.
really fucking cool, man. And you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater and
Right.
exit out the entire community when really it
Right.
was just a few bad apples that are spoiling the bunch. So I'm all happy for those bad apples to be thrown out, which hopefully
Oh,
that's what's
definitely. Yeah.
happening. That's what's happening now. But that is it for another edition of the Cripple Connection podcast. As always, my name is Cody Lash, and you can follow me on Twitter at Cody Lack, CODYLAC. Jeffrey, man, how can they follow you, dude?
Uh, so They can follow me on Twitter. My handle is at Jeffred, so at JEFFRORED. I have discontinued my Facebook only for personal use, so I wouldn't look for me there. But yeah, Twitter, I'm constantly on it, man. I'm between video games or writing projects, all kinds of stuff. If you want to keep up with me, that's definitely the place to do it. So,
Right. Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that is another episode of the Cripple Connection podcast. Until next time, peace and love.
peace.